Good morning. Welcome to week 3 of food, learning, and behavior. Hope you guys had a good week and a good start to what we call the start of the school year. Some of you are homeschooling, some of you are grandparenting, and others of you aren't starting quite yet. So we're all at different phases, but we're all interested in helping our children succeed. And we're talking in this series about how to best do that. Food, nutrition, does impact behavior and learning. And I hope we've established that in the first 2 lessons. Today, we want to talk about how do you make that improvement in your lives. It's easy to know that food or nutrition impacts learning and behavior, but how do we get the things that our kids need into their diet realistically? And believe me, I have struggled with this. I had a child who ate basically, she was down to breakfast bars, applesauce, chicken nuggets. That's about it for maybe a year, and would throw incredible tantrums when she was presented with anything else. And you'll see her a little bit later on when we made the shift with her. It is possible. It's hard. We didn't do it just anytime. We did it over Christmas break when we knew we had time as a family to sit down and make a serious change. And so you'll see her a little bit later on. But right now I want to start with talking about what do you need to add in fermented foods or at least a probiotic. Everybody and their brother is talking about gut health and how the gut microbiome is tied to everything else in the body. And that includes learning, behavior, mood, especially mood. A lot of the new studies are coming out on mood. And so if you really want to help your kids be successful, really adding in those probiotics and being very judicial about using antibiotics and a lot of the processed foods that tear up the microbiome is a pretty important step. So fermented foods are hard with kids. They're not crazy about them. Kefir is about the only one I can get into my kids. And it's also has a lot of added sugar because it's blueberry flavored or strawberry flavored. So we have a gummy probiotic that we can get at GNC locally, and we do that a lot. Yogurt, plain yogurt put into smoothies if they can tolerate dairy is a good addition that we can usually get into our kids. But some kind of probiotics that are supplying the body, resupplying the gut microbiome with the things that it needs to thrive. Because so many of the things that we eat cause the microbiome to tear down. And then supplementing. We take a multivitamin at our house. You can look into, I would never recommend a brand necessarily because everybody's different, but do your own research. And I'm pretty picky about the ones that we use because there's so much junk out there and people will sell you anything. And so doing your own research on what multivitamin to use it's important, and what your kids will do. I mean, some kids will not eat anything other than a little gummy, full of food coloring multivitamin. And so you have to say, is that worth the trade-off? Or we're going to try to get it through food? But pretty much, unless your child is eating a very well balanced diet, supplementing with some kind of multivitamin is pretty important, along with the probiotic. Terry Walls in the Walls Protocol that I have mentioned down here, she says over and over. I say this because she wrote the preface to my first book, and I'm just so impressed with her research and what she has done. But she says that in order to have our cells function correctly, that we're supposed to get 9 cups of fruits and vegetables a day. That's an incredible amount that we are not getting. And so if we're not getting 9 cups of a variety of fruits and vegetables a day, then we really need to consider supplementing. But our goal isn't perfection. It's increasing the amount. And you'll see improvements just in increasing the amount. So 9 may be the ultimate goal. In reality, if we can go from 1 cup a day or no cups a day to 3, that's a good success story, and you ought to celebrate that. So my main strategy in my family started out when the kids were little to sneak it in. And as they become older, I can tie that to rewards and consequences. So in other words, you don't get your phone, you don't get your technology if you don't drink the green smoothie in the morning. I can say that now. You don't get any dessert if you don't eat your vegetable at dinner. I can say those things now. But when they were little, they don't care. They'll throw a tantrum. And if you're dealing with a child with autism or who's on the autistic spectrum or a child with severe learning or cognitive delays, then they may not care. Those rewards and consequences may not be effective. So then you have to go into guerrilla warfare parenting, and that's sneaking it in. So we'll talk about that next. I have 3 main ways that I like to sneak food into my kids' diets, and I still use this to this day, even though I can usually bribe them at this point. And they're starting. I have to say, it sounds like it's all on the parent. It is all on the parent at first, but my kids' tastes are developing. They are saying, you know what, Mom, I haven't eaten anything good all day. I've got to get something good in me. I'm starting to hear that, and it's taken a lot of years, but I think maybe we're finally arriving. And they may go off to college and blow it, but we're starting to see some ownership at our house. Smoothies, like I said, every single morning, that's what we start with at my house. It's just the easiest way I know to load a bunch of fruits and veggies into their diet. I just start with, I mean, the base is just greens, microgreens, or just the box at Kroger that I can get of organic mixed greens. And we load the food processor with that, or I have a Vitamix. I finally broke down and bought one. I had about 4 cheap little smoothie makers, and they all broke, and so eventually I just bit the bullet and bought the Vitamix, and I've had it for 3 years now, and they've replaced 2 parts that I believe I broke and legitimately, and they replaced them anyway. And then we add kefir to that, and usually bananas. I add a powder that is full of vitamins in there that doesn't taste like anything, and so I get a lot of bang for my buck just in that morning smoothie. And like I said, they actually like the way it tastes if I add enough of the sweet stuff, and then you're compromising on sugar. So even the fructose from natural fruit sugar. So you have to kind of weigh it. As I get older, I'm kind of just starting to take out the sweet stuff and say, hey, you got to drink it in order to get your technology that day, and it seems to be working. Pasta sauce is another one I just buy in the jar. The healthiest version I can find at Kroger. You know, I try to buy it organic, non-GMO, and then I just add stuff in there. And same thing in my Vitamix, I will blend down a bunch of carrots. I will blend down cauliflower and stick it into that sauce, and they don't know it's there. Mushrooms are so good for kids, and they're full of vitamins. They don't like them unless they're chopped up very small, but a food processor will do that. And it's a quick, easy meal. You know, I mean, I can boil pasta. I can have the sauce that's chock full of a lot of good stuff. Onions are in there. Garlic is in there. Those are all really good things for kids and vitamins. And then they don't know. They don't care. They don't seem to worry about it. Muffins are another thing. I'm not a big baker, but my daughter is. And so she and I kind of compromise. I'll say, okay, I'll get the stuff for you to make your muffins if we can food process carrots and put them in there, or if we can, zucchini is another one that will go in there a lot. And she likes it. It's kind of her after school pastime. So we've really, and the boys will eat them. They don't know that they're full of zucchini or carrots. Just they don't notice. And so it's snuck in there. Noodles is another thing. I bought one of those machines. I used to do it by hand, and it took forever, and it was just nobody was going to do that in real life. I bought one of those machines where you can run the zucchini through or the daikon radish, and it creates noodles. And pasta sauce with some kind of meat in it, over those, they will eat that. You boil them for like 5 minutes, and they're a little bit soft. And they will eat that, surprisingly. I wasn't sure if they would go for that, but instead of noodles, a lot of times we'll do the veggie noodles. And then soups. Soups are a phenomenal way to sneak things in. And there's probably a soup that your kid will eat. But even if it's not, chopped up veggies, even if they're just ground in there and smooth and pureed, getting those into your kids, it's a good way to increase their load. So eventually, kids have to actually eat vegetables. You know, most likely we'd like them to get to that point in their life. And I want to show you how that worked when we were making the transition with my daughter. It was not easy, and I completely appreciate when parents say they struggle with this. I really do. And I want you just to watch. I think there is a behavioral component, though. We are tired a lot of times. We don't want to have those battles. And so this was after we had been fighting for pretty much 2 weeks in our house. We had said, okay, enough. Cecilia's not eating anything. She was getting very sick. And so this is probably mid-January, after 2 weeks of pretty hardcore at Christmas break. We went into just, you're not leaving the table until you eat. And we're not leaving the house. She had a lot of sensory disorders that went along with her food. You're not leaving the house without your socks and shoes on. And we waited her out. And I sat outside of her door for days over that break. Days. But really, it only took about a week before we started to see a turnaround. Now, this is a couple weeks later at dinner, and I wanted to kind of record her progress. So now, at this point, we started with a fleck. I'm talking a speck of broccoli. And we used to say, you're not leaving this table until you eat it. We're not. After years and years of not eating any vegetables, probably close to 2 years, which is terrible, but she was our third child. And we just started with a speck, and then we increased to a tiny piece, and then increased to a regular portion. And so you can kind of see what she does here. I'm going to stop it right there because I know at this point you're feeling terribly sorry for her, and I did too. But this happened at every meal until we gave up. And so I'd learned that if you just follow through, it's so hard and it tears your heart out as a parent. But you have to keep the bigger picture of what you're trying to do for your child in mind. And so I want you to listen to how I talk to her here. It's one of my prouder parenting moments. I don't lose it. I don't freak out and give in. Just listen to how I talk to her in this, and then watch what she does.
Why are you in timeout? Why are you in timeout?
I'm sorry.
No, tell me why you're in timeout. Why can't you eat dinner with us? Why can't you eat dinner with us? What did you do at the table? It's not okay.
Well, what's that meal?
You didn't want that meal, but is that the meal that we're having for dinner? Mm-hmm. So, does your family want to hear fussing about a meal?
It's not fair.
No, it's not fair. You know what's not fair? Some kids don't have any meal. When you're ready to have a good attitude, you can come join us. Until then, Cecilia, until you're ready to have a good attitude, you can't come join us. If you still have a bad attitude, you need to stay in here. Cecilia, crawling is not a good attitude. Walking like a big girl is a good attitude. When you're ready to walk like a big girl and have a good attitude and eat your dinner, you can come join us.
Remember that, Mom?
Hmm.
What are you doing, Mom?
I'm filming you. You're so handsome. Have a dinner. Fabulous. How's that dinner? There's a little cabbage left on your plate, man.
Mom, why are you doing that? Yeah.
So I hope you can see that it looked pretty bleak at the beginning, and you do feel sorry, but there's a big behavioral component that we as parents have got to take responsibility for, and it is hard. Oh, believe me. I mean, that was probably a mild little incident at our house. There were many, throwing tantrums on the floor, but eventually we got to a point where that didn't happen. And you can see that when you stick with it, if you're just calm, if you just say, this is what we're doing, eventually, most times they come around. And there are exceptions, of course, but I hope you got a couple of suggestions on how to make this happen in your life. And I want to hear in the Facebook group how it works. Thank you.